Tony Sklar with bnetTV. We are here in Barcelona for Mobile World Congress 2013. I am speaking with Andy Geramano from the Small Cell Forum. How are you today, sir?
Great, Tony. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you again, my friend. We always have a great chance to speak about the Small Cell Forum and other topics of conversation for sure. But let's sort of give me a brief overview of what the Small Cell Forum is, where it comes from, where it came from, and where you are today and how you got there.
Yeah, that's a really great question for this week because we're in a period of evolution. Last year we announced the name change from Femto Forum to Small Cell Forum, and it was really all about going from femtocells and including outdoor networks like picocells, metrocells, and microcells. This year, 2013, we're actually already starting to see commercial deployments of these types of outdoor technologies. As an example, AT&T has announced they're going to deploy 40,000 outdoor metrocells between now and 2015. Verizon, second half of this year, will start deploying their outdoor cells. Vodafone in the UK has got 1,000 of them in trial right now that are not just small cells, but they also have 3G, LTE, and Wi-Fi all in the same cell.
So, I just to digress for a moment, obviously memories come back from, multiple MWCs way long ago when we were talking about things like Pico and Femto and those types of nomenclatures, which aren't used anymore because it is just all sort of small cell now. But that rapid deployment sure did happen quite quickly, and the amount of people at this conference, close to 70,000, the whispers over that, you can really see the need for edge-style devices that for this data consumption. Everything is wireless at this point.
Oh, definitely. I mean, we're seeing the levels of coverage, the levels of service. We released a report this summer that showed that with 4 small cells per macro cell, you can offload over 50% of the traffic. So by focusing, laser beam focusing your small cell deployments in your hotspots, you can really address this whole data tsunami. But it's not really about the percentage of data, it's really about the user experience. So with those 4 small cells per microcell, the report shows how mobile operators can improve user experience by over 300% with only 4 small cells per macro. With 10 small cells per macro, they can improve overall user experience for everybody in that macro coverage area by over 500%. So
Are these things that the operators or the owners of the small cells, they can move them around if it's seasonal, if it's something that just, they're finding that capacity switching from a geography standpoint over here, they can pick them up, move them over there?
Generally, they're not really moving them around. We have a couple in our stand here. We're showing them on poles. They're on light poles. They really are small. I mean, they're tiny units, and generally they're going to be put in strategic areas. The mobile operators know where the traffic is. They know where the traffic patterns are. The devices are relatively inexpensive and easy to deploy compared to traditional macro networks. So the installations we're talking about are really permanent. There's backhaul involved, but there are other applications where we've seen small cells being used for disaster recovery applications, like SoftBank in Japan, after the earthquake and devastating tsunami, lost 80% of their base stations in the devastation area. So nobody had communication. So not only were people freaking out about everything going on, but they couldn't even communicate with their families, in Tokyo or around the rest of the world. So communications is critically important, in disaster situations. And SoftBank was able to use their experience with small cells and satellite backhaul technology. They loaded up some cars and drove up, and were able to get communications established quickly in a mobile fashion by just driving in small cells with satellite backhaul.
So let's talk about some important trends that we're going to see for the rest of 2013.
Well, interesting, right now in the stand there's somebody that's talking about phones on planes. So over 100 airplanes now have small cells on them, and the number is just continuing to accelerate, where people can now, up to 24 people can make simultaneous calls on a number of airlines, Virgin Atlantic, Emirates Airlines. We're also seeing maritime applications where people who previously had to go ship to shore and very difficult to communicate back home can now use their regular mobile phone in maritime applications where they can, there's a picocell, 1 per ship, and everybody on the ship can basically use their mobile phones to communicate back with their friends, family, loved ones, enterprise applications. So trends that we're seeing, certainly right now, we've just in the fourth quarter announced 6 million small cells deployed. The majority of those are residential application, about 1/3 enterprise application. We expect enterprise to continue to grow. We just announced yesterday 11 million. So just quarter over quarter, we're seeing 9x growth rate, and we expect that to continue with the majority being residential femtocell. Probably about 85% will be residential femtocell, and about 15% will be the outdoor variety. But it's interesting, the outdoor variety will represent about 75% of the revenue. So it's estimated to be about a $22 billion total market for small cells.
When do the carriers jump into the mix here to start using the small cells as part of their network deployment and backhaul?
That's an
edge question.
Yeah, no, that's really the key question. So we've seen over 40 carriers commercially launch services, and over 60 commit to launch in the near future. So it's a pretty respectable number, but there's hundreds of carriers out there. So what about the rest of them? So we feel like we've with over 10 million units shipped, we've kind of crossed the chasm. But now we want to take it to the next level. So the Small Cell Forum just announced here at the show that a release plan. So the release plan, release 1, is focused on this residential high-volume application. It's really a cookbook. It's an assembly of the last 5 years of work that we've done at the forum, put together in a nice, easy-to-understand release package. And now other operators around the world can just take use of all the experience that we've learned over the last 5 years with the initial deployments, and make it really easy for them to launch their networks.
So let's sort of give me the brief over the sales pitch of why membership has its benefits.
Oh, we don't have enough time in the day. We can just go on and on and on about that. But no, the membership is really important. And some of the reasons, that I think are the most important are the networking aspects. I mean, being able to come to one place and meet everybody in the industry, share ideas. One of the things we've done at the forum is we've been able to quickly influence global standards. So with 3GPP, 3GPP2, Broadband Forum, Next Generation Mobile Networks, Open Mobile Alliance, we have relationships with all these groups. And I'm sorry, for the ones that I've left out, but what we do at the forum is we get together with our technical working groups. We've got 10 different working groups. We've got a marketing group. We've got a radio physical layer group. We've got interoperability group, core network group. I run a services group that does services and applications. And so each of these working groups does work that's relevant to small cells, and then we can quickly feed that in through our liaison relationships to international standards bodies and actually get the technology standardized very rapidly. So if you're in a position where you're interested in getting a piece of this $22 billion market and influencing the way that the market is being defined, the Small Cell Forum really is the place to be for that. And then
finally, what are we going to see from the Small Cell Forum from an announcement standpoint through 2013?
Well, we just announced today an important body of work on backhaul. So everybody says, oh, wow, there's going to be 90 million small cells by 2016. Each one of those small cells needs to be connected to the network via backhaul, whether it's fiber optics, wireless. There's many different methods: satellite backhaul, DSL, cable modem. So it's an 85-page piece of work. It goes through all the issues around backhaul, whether it's jitter, timing, synchronization, all the important items. It makes recommendations on which type of backhaul is best to use when and where, the business case for backhaul. So I think you'll continue to see some evolution in that area. We also announced at the show a rural white paper, which shows the business case for rural applications is profitable for mobile operators in developing countries, $50,000 per site per year of profitability. In more developed countries for rural applications, $200,000 per site per year. So the white paper we introduced at the show really shows that rural applications are also profitable. So release 1 is focused on residential. Release 2, that's coming out about 6 months from now, will be focused on enterprise applications. And then release 3 is on these metro outdoor applications. So you'll continue to see the release program evolve. You'll also see evolution of the standards in terms of self-organizing networks, where macros will work better with metros over this X2 interface. So there's a lot of activity currently going on in the forum.
I was going to say I'm going to end it off there, but just because you had brought up SON, which is one of my favorite topics of conversation, can you expand a little bit about SON's ability to use the small cells in a more efficient capacity?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of people ask about SON. The original SON application really made small cells possible. I mean, when you're going to deploy, 80 million small cells across the network, you can't afford to engineer them the way traditional cells were engineered. Sending a guy out, doing RF planning, site survey, and all this kind of thing. They just really need
10 years later.
Yeah, 10 years later, they just need to plug in and work. So the first generation, this Release 1 concept, residential small cells, was really around self-organizing networks where you have a small cell in your house, and then it self-organizes with the surrounding environment. It knows where it is geographically, so frequency planning and all these kinds of things, just so it's plug and play. Now what we're looking at with this evolution towards outdoor networks, the metro cell concept, now the small cells are higher power, higher capacity, a lot more data going through, and then they need to play a lot better with the macro network. So the small cells have a lot of self-organizing capability, but the macro network still has some legacy concept. So there's some work going on right now with this X2 interface that's evolving self-organizing capability at the edge, at the macro, and also back in the core network. So you have some visibility, locally out at the edge where the radio head is, but you also have some visibility in the network, looking at network congestion, best routing and things. So we're really starting to see SON have the opportunity to evolve even further and get even better.
I think at that point we'll leave it there. I know I could continue to go on and on about those things, but we'll save that for our next conversation.
Sounds good.
Sounds fantastic. Andy, thanks very much for taking the opportunity to speak with us. We will speak again, I'm assuming, in a few months.
Great. Thanks, Tony. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. I speak with Andy Geramano from the Small Cell Forum here at Mobile World Congress 2013. I am Tony Sklar with bnetTV.